generation version of Porsche's Panamera luxury 5-door Gran Turismo model has been usefully evolved. Named after the Carrera Panamerican road race, the Panamera is the brand's offering to luxury segment buyers wanting spacious rear seat accommodation and a properly sporting Gran Turismo driving experience. This model could have ended up being a 4-door version of the company's 911 coupe or a low-slung interpretation of the marque's Cayenne luxury SUV. In the event, it's very much its own car, a long, low 5-door hatch that still offers something very different in its sector. This revitalised Mark III model not only looks a little smarter but also offers an improved range of e-hybrid PHEV models, which get an extremely clever active ride suspension option. Whatever your preference, for boardroom buyers who yearn for Brands Hatch, this car promises to be a tempting proposition.
So, there is still to be a place in Porsche's model line for this car, the Panamera. When the similarly sized and shaped all-electric Taycan was launched by the brand in 2019, it did seem as if the Panamera's days might be numbered. Instead, Porsche has produced this third-generation model, a subtly evolved version of the second-generation design that was first launched in 2017, then updated 3 years later. Like all Panameras made to date, starting with the Mark I incarnation back in 2009, Porsche sees this as a Gran Turismo, the kind of car that allows 2 rear seat passengers to recline in comfort while the driver enjoys themselves. Forget Audi A8s and BMW 7 Series models, think instead faster versions of the Audi A7 or Mercedes CLS, perhaps a Maserati Quattroporte or even the old Aston Martin Rapide. In other words, a 4-door luxury conveyance to really get the pulses racing. This car won't be chauffeur driven. It shouldn't be anyway. It would, after all, be such a shame to ignore all of this Panamera's dynamic attributes and merely treat it like a limo. Mind you, if need be, this Mark III version can function that way more easily, thanks to its greater rear seat space and larger boot. There's also a more digitalised cabin and a clever new suspension system. Lots to talk about then. But does the Panamera still have a credible role to play in a Porsche lineup increasingly focused towards full electric models? Well, you'll need the usual comprehensive car and driving review to find out. Though the Panamera has always been big, wide and heavy, Porsche has always somehow managed to make it feel like a Porsche. And of course nothing's changed in that regard with this G3 era design. Air suspension's now standard, and it delivers a truly brilliant combination of supple ride and the kind of connected feel you want from the brand. The steering's just as good, such a perfect combination of feel and response that it's small wonder that Zuffenhausen doesn't want to share its engineering with Volkswagen Group partner Audi. Talking of Audi, underpinning all of this is essentially the same modular sport toolkit platform that Porsche had to share with Ingolstadt with the old G2 Panamera model. Though for this replacement G3 design, that chassis features significant modifications. The engine range does too, familiar though it might look at first glance. The entry-level 2.9-litre V6 petrol unit that we're trying here, offered with rear or four-wheel drive, has been completely revised, with changes to fuel injection flow rate, ignition timing and boost pressure. Together, these enhancements have increased power output by 23 PS to 353. 62 mile an hour from rest takes 5.1 seconds en route to 169 miles an hour, or 4.8 seconds and 168 miles an hour in the alternative Panamera 4 model. So even at this end of the range, things are pretty rapid, though unless you add a sports exhaust, the oral fireworks you might hope for seem to have been largely muffled by emissions regulations. The same 2.9-litre V6 is also used in 2 6-cylinder plug-in hybrid variants, the e-hybrid version with 470 PS and in the 4S e-hybrid with 544 PS. Those dramatically increased power outputs come courtesy of a 190 PS electric motor inserted into the housing of the heavily revised version of the ZF-built PDK 8-speed dual-clutch auto transmission that all Panameras now use. The big difference this time round is that this motor is mated to a much larger battery, boosted in size from 17.9 to 25.9 kilowatt hours. Hence, EV range figures that are almost doubled over the equivalent previous generation models, to 59 miles for the e-hybrid and 56 miles for the 4S e-hybrid. There's still a throbbing 4-litre twin-turbo V8 petrol power plant for top-of-the-range models, but like the V6 unit, it too has been fundamentally altered, with everything different except the block. You can still get this powertrain in conventional form, in the form of the 500 PS GTS model, which sprints to 62 miles an hour in just 3.8 seconds, on the way to 188 miles an hour to the accompaniment of a wonderful snarl. But most Panamera customers who want a V8 will order it mated to PHEV tech, where in combination with the e-motor I just mentioned, it produces 680 PS in the turbo e-hybrid model, allowing 62 miles an hour to flash by in just 3.2 seconds on the way to 196 miles an hour, with EV range of 57 miles. Should that level of performance be somehow insufficient, you can ask your Porsche Centre about an even more powerful Turbo S e-hybrid flagship model, which offers 782 PS, makes 62 miles an hour in 2.9 seconds, and manages 202 miles an hour. EV range is 52 miles. Other than engines, the big choice for Panamera customers lies with suspension. Earlier, we mentioned the standardisation of the air-sprung setup across the range. It's a PASM, or Porsche Active Suspension Management Adaptive System, that combines with a semi-active anti-roll bar and uses more sophisticated 2-valve dampers that have allowed Porsche to switch from the previous 3-chamber setup to a simple 2-chamber arrangement. And it works both together and independently of the 3 drive modes, Normal, Sport and Sport Plus, and can be set at 4 levels: lift, normal, lowered and low. For those who want to go further, Porsche now offers an even more advanced suspension setup called Active Ride, offered as a fearsomely expensive option, and only available with the plug-in hybrid variants because their 400-volt hybrid system is necessary to power its hydraulic pumps. Active Ride uses single-chamber air suspension along with a 2-valve damper connected to an electro-hydraulic pump, allowing the system to react proactively to changes in the tarmac surface and the way the driver is driving. The suspension can tilt the car into bends and combat hard acceleration, either by braking or adding extra pressure to the front or rear wheels to level the car out. Very clever. Porsche calls it a game changer and says it's the best chassis system on the market. We wouldn't doubt it, but even with standard springs, no other large luxury car drives as well as this one. You won't need us to tell you that this 3rd generation Panamera design is very much a case of evolution over revolution. You might even mistake this for a further facelifted version of the old Mark II G2 series model. But no, Porsche insists that this G3 era design is completely different, and it all sits on a heavily updated version of the modular sport toolkit platform introduced with the previous model that the brand developed with Bentley. Get up close and you'll start to appreciate the visual changes and stretched proportions that make this the sleekest Panamera yet. The shallow glasshouse now has a redesigned window line that emphasises the substantial 5,052mm body length. There are more angled rear quarter-light windows, and the wheels have been redesigned with sizes between 19 and 21 inches. We've got 20-inch rims here. As before, the bodywork features taut surfacing, and there are vertical vents behind each front wing. But there's only now this 5-door Gran Turismo style body shape, the old Sport Turismo estate, unfortunately having been dropped. The most obvious outside changes made to this third generation design lie at the more athletic looking front end, with its probing bonnet, redesigned headlights, sleeker bumper, smarter front grille and additional air intake above the number plates. These corner cutouts are now quite different too, with integrated fins and flanking vertical daytime running light strips. At the rear, the Panamera has always provided an angled tailgate, in contrast to the boot you get with its two most direct rivals, the BMW 8 Series Gran Coupe and the Mercedes CLS. That liftback is now frameless, and the outer edges of the back window are flush with the contour of the body, creating harmonious lines at the rear of the car. The full-width light bar has 3D Porsche script, and turbo models, we should mention, are much more distinctly set apart this time round, benefiting from a more aggressive body kit, turbonite coloured side window strips, a distinctive rear apron with painted diffuser panels, chrome-plated exhaust tailpipes and a triple panel fold-out rear wing. Right, let's take a look inside. Now, if you specify the optional active ride suspension system, the car lifts by 55mm when the doors open to make it easy to get in. Inside up front, where the screens light up as soon as you get in, even before you press the start button, again, initial familiarity with the Porsche driver experience control layout gives way after closer inspection to appreciation of considerable change. If you owned the previous G2 era model, you'll immediately notice there's now no gear stick. That's been replaced by a fascia-mounted selector from the Cayenne, also the source for this redesigned steering wheel. And you'll perhaps sadly note that the instrument gauge cluster has lost its previous analog rev counter and followed the prevailing trend to become simply one large screen. The centre screen is still neatly embedded into the dash and still 12.3 inches in size, but has been completely redesigned. And to the left of it, you can still add the additional 11.9-inch passenger side screen we have here, onto which movies can now be streamed. Slimmer, more elegant metal door handles and larger, cool metallic steering wheel mounted paddle shifters complete the changes. As before, there's lots of shiny black surfacing and you sit quite low, separated from your passenger by this high centre console. The upper panel of it flexes to the touch, which initially seems like a build fault, until you realise that it's intentional, part of the functionality of this glossy climate panel that sits below the central vents. The redesigned instrument screen we mentioned has allowed Porsche to offer the wide range of gauge display layouts you get from rivals. Controls on the right-hand wheel spoke allow you to move from a decluttered calm screen to full screen mapping, or screens with two outer round dial spaces flanking either mapping, a driver assist graphic or a rev counter. The right dial space can be configured to show nav guidance, trip data, lap times, audio selection or engine temperatures. As for this central screen, well, it's been brought right up to date and displays its wider range of features with two kinds of home screen. One has customizable widget sections. Here we've got phone, radio and mapping, while the other has the usual rows of little icons. Shortcut, home, nav, music, phone and car functions reside along this monitor's right-hand frame. What else? Well, the Comfort Sport seats are brilliantly supportive. There's a choice of 8-way adjustment, this 14-way setup or even 18-way adjustment. And the classic 3-spoke wheel feels great in your hands. It's also easier to place the car than you might think, thanks to the way you can view the front wings and the bonnet power dome from your low-slung perch. Choose the Sport Chrono option and you get this lovely dash top mounted stopwatch as well. As for issues, well, they're much as before. All that shiny black surfacing is still a magnet for hairs and smears. The drive mode controller dial on the steering wheel still feels cheap. And as with the previous G2 design, touch-sensitive fascia controls usually mean you have to look away from the road to operate key functions, rather than being able to access them intuitively as you could with the original G1 model's conventional switches and buttons. As for cabin practicality, well, the absence of a gear stick has freed up space for this lidded cubby above the uncovered twin cup holders below, which has a cooled wireless charging mat space and twin USB-C ports. There's the usual lidded box between the seats, which incorporates a 12-volt socket and a removable separator. The door bins are small and there's nowhere for your sunglasses, but there's a reasonable glove box and ticket clip in the driver's sun visor. Access to the rear has been improved with larger door apertures. Porsche calls this a 4-door sports car, which doesn't sound very promising for backseat legroom, but it's been improved a little this time round. As a result, there's pretty much what you'd get in a CLS or an 8 Series Grand Coupe, which in practice means less than you'd get in a less expensive and more conventional premium saloon, like an E-Class or a 5 Series. Still, knee room's helped by the sculpt seat backs, and you can slide your feet well under the chairs ahead. As you might expect from that swept-back roofline though, headroom is nothing like as good as it would be in any of the cars just mentioned. You might be slightly horrified to discover that this middle part of the rear bench isn't standard as in the Taycan. It's part of an extra cost 4+1 option. As you can see, there's not much incentive to specify this because this high centre console that flows right into the back seat leaves nowhere for a centre-seated occupant to put their feet. That console will feel rather redundant if you haven't paid more to build into it the extra controls for the optional 4-zone climate system that we have fitted here. You get this rather useless, shallow central storage tray, cup holders in the fold-down armrest, really tiny door pockets, little lights in the overhead grab handles, small nets on the front seat backs, and a coat hook on each B-pillar. These rear quarter-light windows let in extra light, and you can add a panoramic glass roof if you want more. Right, let's take a look out back. Now, some efforts have been made to enhance boot space with this G3 era design. The tailgate rises to reveal a long, shallow cargo area, improved in size to 494 litres, which means the trunk now has space for 2 golf bags, following a direct request from Panamera project leader Thomas Framuth. Well, this V6 version does anyway. You suffer a bit in this regard if you go PHEV. The Panamera 4 e-hybrid's capacity is rated at 430 litres, and with the 2 turbo PHEV models, it's 421 litres. You've to lump everything you stow back here over a very high loading lip topped by this rather impractical silver cover that will quickly scratch or scuff. There's a deep well beneath the cargo area floor, but it isn't large enough for a spare wheel and is mostly taken up by the battery. Above the base there are deep recesses and concealed bright lights either side, plus 4 tie-down points, a 12-volt socket on the left, and hidden away down to the left the control buttons for the optional retracting tow bar if you have it. If you need space for longer items, the rear seat back has a convenient 40-20-40 split, allowing things like skis to be slid between 2 rear-seated passengers. Seats down capacity varies from 1,328 litres with this standard model to 1,255 litres for the turbo variants. As we filmed in late autumn 2024, prices were starting at £82,500, which gets you the standard 2.9 litre V6 rear-driven Panamera that we're trying here. You'll need just over £86,000 for the all-wheel drive Panamera 4 with the same engine. It's around £91,000 for the Panamera 4 e-hybrid and around £102,000 for the Panamera 4S e-hybrid. From there, it's a big jump to around £126,000 for the Panamera GTS, and just over £145,000 for the turbo e-hybrid PHEV. If you can stretch to nearly £170,000, an even faster turbo S e-hybrid model is at the top of the range. As we've said elsewhere in this review, it's no longer possible to get the old Sport Turismo estate body style. It's difficult to identify exactly what competes with the Panamera. In the past, Audi's A7 Sportback has been the closest alternative, but that was being gradually phased out as we compiled this film. The future was a little uncertain as well for 2 other options you might like to look at, the BMW 8 Series Gran Coupe and the Mercedes CLS, though they both only come with 4 doors, so aren't quite as direct a match. The The BMW is probably the closer match in 840i form, comparable to this base Panamera in M850i, guise, a much cheaper alternative to a Panamera GTS, and in M8 competition guise, a much cheaper but unelectrified alternative to a turbo e-hybrid. The Mercedes CLS these days only comes either as a diesel, which Porsche doesn't now offer, or in top petrol V6 CLS 53 4MATIC Plus form, which might make an interesting and most powerful alternative to a comparably priced Panamera 4. But none of these options are really quite the same as a Panamera. If therefore you've concluded that only this Porsche will do, then you're going to need to know just how generous Zuffenhausen has been with standard specs. So let's take a closer look at that now. All Panameras come with wheels of at least 19 inches in size, matrix LED headlights, a powered tailgate, all-round parking sensors and an alarm. Inside, there's heated 8-way, power-adjustable comfort front seats, a sports steering wheel with a mode switch, 2-zone climate control with a particulate pollen filter, a 15-watt wireless phone charging mat and a reversing camera. Media connectivity via the 12.3-inch Porsche Communications Management central touchscreen, includes a Sound Package Plus audio system and Apple CarPlay or Android Auto smartphone mirroring. Standard safety kit includes a wider range of assistance features, including warn and brake assist system with pedestrian protection, lane keeping assist and driver awareness detection, plus the active speed limit assist setup now interacts with traffic sign recognition. In addition, there are of course the usual full suite of front, side and curtain airbags linked to an e-call system. Optional safety features include rear side airbags and lane change assist. Talking of extra cost features, well, as usual with Porsche, you can spend a fortune on options, as has been the case here. There's the Sports Chrono package that most customers will want, with its dash-top mounted stopwatch, plus more advanced HD matrix LED headlights, a Bose surround sound system, a front passenger display, 4-zone automatic climate control with its rear seat ventilation screen, and the 4+1 rear seat option that allows you to take a middle occupant on the back bench. There's also the Porsche InnoDrive semi-autonomous drive system, which uses radar and sensor feedback, plus predictive GPS data to look ahead for up to 2 miles as you drive, modifying speed and gear shift strategy to better suit the speed limits, topographic road features and traffic flow you're likely to encounter. Some of the other options we've got fitted here included a heated GT Sports steering wheel and more multi-adjustable 14-way front seats. 18-way adjustable adaptive sports seats are also offered. There's an electrically extending tow bar available as well. You can get larger wheels, of course, maybe the 20 inches we have here, or even 21-inch rims. And to replace the standard partial leather upholstery, maybe a full leather interior like we have here, or perhaps a leather-free upholstered cabin with Porsche's Race Tex material used instead. As for other features, well, we'd suggest that for most Panamera customers, the optional sports exhaust is pretty much essential, especially now that the various engines have been partly muffled by stringent emissions regulations. If you've chosen one of the PHEVs and have a substantial slab of spend still left in your budget, we'd recommend that you look at the brand's clever new Active Ride system, which requires around £7,000 more. Across the range, other things you might want to look at include rear axle steering, the Porsche Torque Vectoring Plus system, ceramic brakes and a head-up display. There's a panoramic glass roof and you can additionally get night view assist and a remote park assist system that'll allow you to park the car with a smartphone app. Unfortunately, on all mainstream Panameras, you have to pay extra for adaptive cruise control and a front seat ISOFIX fitting. Other options include cooled ventilation and massaging available for the front seats, soft closed doors, rear privacy glass and air quality system, blinds for the rear, side and tailgate windows, and a whole menu of cosmetic colour additions. Here, for instance, we've got side window trims in high gloss black. For the inside, there are a huge number of trimming, inlay and upholstery choices. The efficiency readings for this more affordable 2.9-litre V6 engined Panamera and its Panamera 4 sibling model don't differ very much from their direct predecessors. For this base rear-driven model, that means a combined fuel figure of 29.4 mpg and a best possible CO2 return of 219 grams per kilometre. Which isn't that great if you compare it against the readings of a directly comparable rival BMW 840i Gran Coupe, up to 33.2 mpg and up to 184 grams per kilometre. For the Panamera 4, you're looking at up to 28 mpg and up to 230 grams per kilometre, which again could be better. A directly comparable rival, Mercedes-AMG CLS 53 4MATIC Plus, manages up to 29.7 mpg and up to 216 grams per kilometre. You'll need deep pockets to run the conventionally V8 powered Panamera GTS. That manages bests of only 23.5 mpg and 274 grams per kilometre. Obviously, the V6 plug-in hybrids do much better thanks to the fitment of a much larger 25.9 kilowatt-hour battery for this Mark III model, a power pack which is nearly double the size of the earliest 14.1 kilowatt-hour battery used in the original Panamera hybrid. Thanks to this, today's G3 era Panamera 4 e-hybrid returns up to 282.5 mpg on the combined cycle, up to 22 grams per kilometre of CO2 and has a 59-mile EV range. For the Panamera 4S e-hybrid, the figures are up to 256.8 mpg, up to 24 grams per kilometre of CO2 and a 56-mile EV range. These PHEV models always start in the purely electric e-power mode. Once the state of charge of the battery is under a certain minimum value, the system automatically switches to hybrid auto mode, which adapts the operating strategy to the current driving situation. In e-hold mode, the current state of charge of the battery is preserved. In e-charge mode, on the other hand, the combustion engine charges the battery to up to 80% out of town and above 34 miles an hour, while the Panamera utilises the efficiency benefits of the hybrid drive in city traffic. What about the V8 PHEV versions? Well, here again, the WLTP rated efficiency figures have improved significantly. The Turbo e-hybrid is rated at up to 235.4 mpg on the combined cycle, up to 26 grams per kilometre of CO2 and up to 57 miles of EV range, up from a best of 33 miles before. For the top Turbo S e-hybrid, the figures are up to 201.8 mpg, up to 31 grams per kilometre of CO2 and up to 52 miles of EV range. All these stats, by the way, are usefully better than you get from a rival Bentley Flying Spur Speed PHEV. Whichever Panamera PHEV you choose, you'll be pleased to find that because the now bigger battery's 300 kilogram weight is only 22 kilos heavier than before, and it's supported by an 11 kilowatt onboard AC charger, a replacement for the old 3.6 kilowatt unit, charging times are significantly faster than before. AC charging at 11 kilowatts from 0 to 100% requires 2 hours and 42 minutes. What else? Well, depreciation and insurance group ratings will be painful. For servicing, you'll need to visit your local Porsche centre every 2 years or every 20,000 miles, whichever comes first. And there's the usual, unremarkable 3-year unlimited mileage warranty package. The market has always offered very fast, very luxurious, full-sized luxury saloons. Rarely, though, have they been very rewarding to drive. The Panamera has always been different, very much in a class of its own for boardroom buyers who don't spend all their lives wafting up and down autobahns. In its earlier forms, it was so nearly a truly great car, so nearly the impressively complete contender this third generation model now is. We approve of the enhancements to digital cabin technology, engine efficiency, boot space and rear seat room. And the optional active ride system is industry leading. Of course, we're not blind to this car's failings. Prices have risen substantially, something that would be easier to stomach had Porsche not been so mean with some aspects of the standard spec and consigned so many important features to the options list. Some still struggle with the styling too, and will prefer the kind of more conventional, stylised luxury saloon that competitors offer that will give you a bigger, deeper boot. Rivals of that sort, though, wouldn't see which way this car went on a twisty road, nor are they as practical for leisure use. So the Panamera has come good then, but probably too late to save itself as a credible long-term model line. For some, the introduction of Porsche's full EV Taycan model has confirmed this Panamera's dinosaur status. But others, who maybe aren't quite ready to have their lives ruled by a still somewhat flaky public charging infrastructure, will find in the now much improved PHEV segments of the Panamera range perhaps an ideal combination of old-school combustion involvement and futuristic electrified technology. In summary, if you still enjoy driving and like the way that this contender looks, you'll love the way it rewards you at the wheel. The Panamera's unconventional, it's unique, but best of all, it is a proper Porsche.